Welcome to Legendary Physique. I'm Richard Baldwin, your host, and I'm here with Jerry Brainum to talk about his March issue of Applied Metabolics. Jerry,
How
you've
you
been
doing?
sick.
Oh yeah, yeah. I lost 21 pounds in 3 weeks, and the bad part is it wasn't voluntary. It was diverticulitis, which is an inflammation of you have these little pockets in the intestine. They almost like when you see these little bulges on a tire.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens in the intestine. It's called diverticuli. Normally they don't cause any symptoms, but when they get infected with bacteria,
Yeah.
that's diverticulitis. I had a little complication. Not only did I have diverticulitis, I also had what they call peritonitis, which is very serious because peritonitis involves the presence of bacteria in the gut where it's not supposed to be. And the danger there is if that bacteria gets in the blood, then you have septicemia, what used to be called blood poisoning, which has a 50% mortality rate. So what I had was very serious, and I'm still not over it yet, but I do feel a lot better. You
Well,
know,
that's
I'm
good.
used, thank God, all the many years I've studied nutrition, I more or less know exactly what to do to treat myself, and it seems to be working. I mean,
Well, that's great.
it's about 95% gone. I haven't been
Yeah.
able to work out yet, but I started doing some stationary bike just to get my blood flowing. So, my brain is still working, thank God.
Well, I know your fans were sweating it there, and
Yeah,
when you're in the hospital and everything, and we heard
well,
about it. So we're glad you're out. We're glad you've been out and you're starting to heal and feel better. That's
oh man,
great.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone, Richard. The pain, I've had various pains, as most people have throughout my life, but the pain I experienced with this came on like a thunderstorm. I
Ooh.
mean, I was fine 1 hour, the next hour, my stomach started to bulge like one of the
Oh
pro bodybuilders.
man.
I looked like I was pregnant, this big belly sticking out. The pain was so extensive that I couldn't even walk. I couldn't
Man, that's
drive.
scary.
I had to take one of those lift cars to the to the emergency room.
Holy
And I'm
mackerel.
laughing about, but I mean, I really wasn't sure I was going to live. I mean, it was that. I was thinking, okay, I guess this is it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was trying to keep calm, but I mean, just incredibly excruciating pain. Incredible. Oh my
Sorry to
God.
hear that. At
Yeah,
least it's
but
past.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. I still don't know the final effects. I got to go to another doctor.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I won't need surgery. That's what I'm a little worried about. I don't really want to have surgery, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean,
Okay.
4 doctors in the hospital, including a radiologist who looked at my CAT scans, told me that I don't look like I'm going to need surgery, especially if
Well, that's good.
the antibiotics worked, and they did work. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I still have a little residual bloat when I eat, slight cramps, but nothing really serious right now.
Well,
I'm
that's
able to,
good.
I still am not ready to train.
Well, I know you, my friend, and I know that's killing you.
Oh,
It's
it's
like
killing
me. Oh, I
me.
can't stand missing workout.
Richard, this is the longest. I mean, this is going to shocking statement. This is the longest layoff from weight training I've had in 35 years. I've never taken a full month off in 35 years. I mean, I'm almost afraid to go back to the gym because there's muscle memory. We talked about this,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
written about it. The good
Well, now
news
you're
is
going to
that
experience it.
now I'm going to actually see. Well, I know it's real, but
Yeah.
hopefully those myonuclei are still there, dormant in my muscle. So when I start with the baby weights that I'm going to have to do when I go back to not that I was lifting very heavy
Yeah.
before, but now it's going to be, I'm going to probably be lifting weights that'll make the women in the gym laugh. But I have no choice. It's better than
Yeah.
nothing. And I'll gradually come back, hopefully. So we'll see.
Yeah. Been there with I had a back operation. They didn't want me to go in for at least a month. I
Yeah.
cheated and I went in before the post-op even. But luckily I was not stupid enough to do something that would interfere with the back or hurt it or straighten it in any way. So I could still work with machines for arms and even do some leg stuff as long as I put no like leg extensions or something. But so when I went and told the doctor exactly what he said, okay. When I told him I was already training again, he sort of made a face until I told him exactly what he did. He said, okay, you know.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
he tested me and had me lift my knee up to his hand. He held his hand up, and I did it really easily. He said, holy shit, I've never seen anybody be able to do that this soon after that operation. So you must be doing something right.
yeah. Well, people, Bill Grant, Bill, of
Yeah,
course, he had the same thing a couple of years ago. His was even more serious than mine
yeah,
because he had to have surgery where they removed a piece of his intestine. That's the
Yeah, I
standard
remember
surgery.
that.
And the thing is, he went down to 140 pounds. He was bone thin,
Oh man,
Grant. And remember his
that's
contest
like
weight.
50 pounds, isn't it?
Yeah, his
55
contest
pounds.
yeah, his
Yeah,
contest weight was 190 to 195. So it gives you
yeah.
an idea. And I saw photos of him. His clothes were hanging on him, literally. I mean, he was like but and I used to tell him on the phone. I said, Bill, don't worry. All the muscle that you built over the years, not only are you're going to recover faster than normal, but you're going to get it all back. And that's exactly what happened.
Well,
Because
Jerry, don't worry about it. You're going to get it all back.
oh yeah, I'm not really worried. I'm not worried. The biggest worry I have now, honestly, is whether I'm going to have surgery. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that concerns me. I'm not worried about the other stuff.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed, my friend.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
So, in spite of all this, you're still publishing that newsletter. And what do you have for us in March issue?
Well, in March, I have a couple of interesting articles. For example, I've written, you might be aware, I've written several articles on natural bodybuilding,
Yeah.
Best techniques based on science. And when I write these articles, I don't just base it on the studies, because a lot of these guys who write the studies, they're like ivory tower academics who don't even
Yeah.
work. So
That used to frustrate the crowd out of me. I'd hear stuff they were teaching over in the phys ed department or something. Yeah, and I went to the same place El Darden did, right? And he was working on his PhD. And some of the stuff, I mean, he did some research that blew away some of the bullshit that was going on over there. But yeah, so I'm familiar with it.
So and so I when I write these articles, I incorporate the 56 years of training that I have. So I kind of give people tips on what to avoid, how to do things right. And I've written a couple of articles that are basically blueprints for anyone who competes in the new men's physique division, the so-called classic bodybuilding, where they're a little bit smaller and they wear the style trunks that we wore when we competed and all that. And of course the natural bodybuilders themselves. But I did another article for the March issue. It's basically, what's the actual winning formula for natural bodybuilders? In other words, what, encapsulated in one article, what are the techniques that will work for 95% of people who are involved in natural bodybuilding, whether they compete or not? I mean, a lot of people today aren't interested in competing. They're what they call recreational trainers. And, they just want to look good. They want to have the six packs. And this article is for them, too, because it'll tell them the best ways to achieve, increase muscle size and strength without using drugs. So that's the first. It's basically the winning formula for bodybuilding.
I can't wait to share that with some of my friends in the gym who are doing that. They're competing in some natural contests.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'll be great.
It'll help them a lot. And then I did another article. I came across a study. It was done of British bodybuilders where they had, I think, about maybe 30 or 40 bodybuilders that had, these were kind of successful. They'd already won a number of amateur contests, and they were all training for this major national British show that the winners, if they won, it would allow them to turn professional. So, what these researchers did is follow them, and the interesting part about the article is they discovered certain things that the winners did that the other bodybuilders, and this includes men and women, by the way.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Winners use certain techniques that the other bodybuilders who didn't places I did not use, and I found that very interesting because it basically kind of gives you an idea of the more successful techniques that allow these people to win this contest and allow them to turn pro. And again, they were natural bodybuilders. They weren't on any drugs. And, the thing about natural bodybuilders is you have to be a lot more analytical because you don't have the crutch of anabolic drugs. I mean, if you're taking a lot of, anabolic steroids and growth hormone, insulin, all that stuff, you can do a lot of stupid things and still be fairly successful because the drugs, let's face it, I mean, like you could overtrain, you can even like screw up your nutrition and you could still make a surprising amount of gains. But when you're natural, you don't have that crutch of drugs. You have to be more analytical. You have to really discover what works and what doesn't work. Otherwise you're going to be dead in the water. So this one, I called it After the Contest Ends. It basically, this contest basically tells what happens, to the contest after the contest. What changes occurred in the bodybuilders? In other words, Why did some of them get fat? What did they do wrong?
Uh,
How were the hormones affected? I mean, was there any effects on insulin and testosterone and growth hormone? And I also, what these researchers didn't do and what I did is I gave some suggestions on how to avoid some of the problems that are frequently encountered post-contest, such as you've seen these guys and women too, after a contest, they start piling on the pounds. They get,
yeah.
within like 3 weeks, they're fat as donuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
I can't believe Lee Priest. I mean,
Oh,
that guy would eat donuts and stuff and look like a fat guy. And then, boom, he'd get shredded.
well, I saw Lee Priest once. I went to a beach contest.
Uh-huh.
I was walking by and I see this just little short obese fat guy. He was eating a huge bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I mean he was really chubby. And I looked at him and I said, "Gee, he looks familiar, but who is he?" And suddenly the guy says, "Hey Jerry, how you doing?" With the Australian accent. I said, "Lee, is that you?"
What'd he say?
He says, "Yeah, it's me." And he was eating this big bucket of, and I said, "Lee, I didn't want to say anything about his condition. It shocked me. He had a pot belly."
Yeah.
I said to him, "When's your next show?" He says, "Oh, I'm competing. I think it was the Olympics, something like that. 3 months." And I'm thinking to myself, 3 months? There's no way this guy's going to get in shape in 3 months. He's a little fat guy. 3 months later, I saw him. He was shredded. He had veins going through his abdominals. Amazing character this guy was.
And you know what? You can't just say it's just the drugs because everybody else was taking them too. That guy's just a genetic freak.
No, he's a genetic freak, but he works very hard. I mean, somebody told me that in preparation for contest, this guy does like 2 to 3 hours a day of aerobics. I mean, that's something I could never do.
Me either. I'd rather skip the chicken.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a very. I mean, when he puts his mind to it, he's very. And the results show.
Yeah.
Lee is definitely one of the greatest shorter bodybuilders in history. Phenomenal physique, phenomenal.
I may have mentioned this before, but were you hanging around Danny Padilla at all in I think it was 78? When he came out to California weighing about 130 pounds, and in 3 months he's 190.
I always tell that story about Danny because
I never saw anything like it.
Well, what Danny Padilla would do, him and his father, they had like a food store or a shopping store, something like that.
I think he had a grocery store.
A grocery store in Rochester, New York. And when he worked with his father. He didn't train at all for like months, 6, 7 months. He didn't touch a weight. Then he'd show up in California and he'd be this, again, little pudgy short guy, no semblance of a world-class physique. And then, as you said, in 3 months, he developed into this incredible, top to bottom. One thing about Danny is that he had no weak points.
No.
I mean, I personally believe he should have won a lot more major titles than he did. The man had he had beautiful arm shape, calves, back, small waist. The only thing he had against him was height.
Yeah. I mean, I went up to him when he came in. I saw that transformation going on. And after the first month, I said, "Danny, what do you got, a bicycle pump or something? You pump yourself up?" I mean, I can see a difference every freaking day. I never saw anything like it.
Danny was a clear-cut combination of genetics, muscle memory, and response to drugs. Those were
I watched Zane train World and stuff, and he looked kind of smooth, and then all of a sudden he would rip up fast.
Oh, I saw Frank train once. I think it was one of the NABA universes. I saw him 6 days before the show. He took off his shoes in the original Golds. He was posing, and he didn't look like he was ready for a contest at all. I mean,
and then dialed it in.
There was no fat on him. Don't get me wrong. He didn't have any fat, but he was smooth.
Yeah.
I didn't see any veins. I mean, he just looked like just smooth.
Yeah.
Then I didn't see him. He kind of disappeared. He went into hiding, and then the contest showed up. And in those days we didn't have the internet. Had to wait for the magazines to come out. Yeah. When I looked at the magazines, he was shredded, at the Universe, shredded, vascular, shredded in 1 week. Yeah. That's why they called him the chemist. Because they thought Frank had some secret techniques he used that allowed him to, in fantastic shape overnight.
Yeah.
But again, he was a very intelligent guy. He was smart, and as I've written in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, Frank was very methodical when it came to training. He kept a training diary and a nutrition diary. Yeah. He wrote down everything he did over the years since he started as a teenage bodybuilder.
One of his books is just as his notes, isn't it? His diary? Yeah.
Exactly right. He took those notes and he published them in books, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, Frank is pretty open about his. He doesn't, hide anything.
Yeah.
Everything he did, he published in these books. And one of them, I think, is even called a training diary or something. But I mean, he was very methodical. And as he once told me, and Bill Pearl did the same thing. They had little blueprints, all their training experience in their diaries. They could see exactly what worked for them, so they knew exactly how to prepare for the contest that would get them in peak shape at the exact moment they needed to be.
Yeah.
Most bodybuilders are not that methodical.
Yeah. I think I was, when I was competing in the universe, I kept notes on especially the last 6 weeks, and it was like, that's it though, and I hoped I'd learn something if I messed up, how to fix it the next time. But I don't even know where those are now.
The only time I kept a training diary was when I was doing the Arthur Jones high intensity stuff in the early 70s. You remember Arthur Jones said you had to increase weight or reps every workout. So what I do is, I didn't do that many exercises because it was, low volume, high intensity.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'd record the weights and reps I did every workout. And at the end of the workout, I had a separate column where I put goal reps or goal weight. And
I did that too.
So when I went to the gym the next time, I would actually look at the book and I'd say, okay, I got to do 12 reps today because I did 10 reps last workout.
Yep.
And surprisingly, maybe because I was in my 20s and I was at my peak of strength, I was able to do it. I was on no drugs. And you know what, Richard? I made steady progress. I made faster progress than the guys in the gym that were taking steroids because I was very progressive. I always increased weight or reps just about every work. It was amazing the gains I made. I look back now in almost disbelief how fast I gained because I every workout was a battle. I had to show progress. It's not like the guys today where they use the same weights, same reps, and they never make any gains. They look the same all the time.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I started increasing my sets, reps, and everything, and I gained a half inch in my arms in, I think it was 3 weeks.
When was this?
But I'm stuck. This is about a month ago.
Oh yeah.
Now I upped the weight some more, and I'm still trying to maintain at least 4 sets of 4 different exercises per body part on the, not just biceps and triceps. Everything else I'm not doing that much, and I'm stuck. I think, well, I might have gained another quarter actually. I think I measured last night. I gained another quarter, but it's like now it's like, I remember this article that Larry Scott wrote years ago called "Shoot for that 16th of an inch." So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, I wrote an article. It was in Applied Metabolics, where I came across a theory developed by some researchers where they suggested that for advanced men, we're talking about years of training, not for guys that have been training a year or so, guys like you and me, who've been around for a long time. They actually went against the grain, and they said advanced men should actually train stubborn muscles, or muscles that they want to grow. They should actually train them more frequently. In other words, they used biceps as an example. What they said was to do, to do short bicep workouts, maybe 4 sets of biceps 4 times a week, not twice, not 3, 4 times a week. And the reason for that is because muscle protein synthesis in advanced men peaks in 24 hours. See what I'm saying? So by doing more frequent workouts, you take advantage of the increased muscle protein synthesis. And the theory was that this would prod muscle growth even in somebody who hasn't had muscle growth in years.
Well, I hit him 4 times. It's that heavy, intense one. Then I just, on another day, usually the day before I'm going to do the heavy arm workout, at the end of chest and back workout, I'll do just 3 sets of dumbbell curls, maybe, and then 3 sets of overhead extensions. Or sometimes I'll take a barbell, or I might do. I'll pick. Sometimes I'll just do push downs or something.
Right. That's all you need. You don't need a lot of volume. All you want to do is stimulate the muscle. That's it. You only need like 4 sets. That's it. You don't need to do a full arm workout. In fact, doing 20 sets would probably be too much if you did them 4 days a week. But getting back to the newsletter, let me ask you, Richard, when you trained for contests and you were on a contest diet, did you ever take a day off and eat a so-called junk day?
No.
You never did. You
No.
stayed on it 7 days.
Yeah.
Well, you are aware that a lot of bodybuilders do that. I
Oh
did
yeah.
that myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was see when I was on. I used to my contest diet was a low carb diet, and I found that it was if I didn't have carbs at least once a week, I would start to actually. And remember, I was drug free. I would actually start to lose muscle. I couldn't get a pump. I now know the reason why. It had to do with depleted glycogen levels, but you know, I came across a case study of a bodybuilder who had just won a contest. Remember, I was talking earlier how a lot of bodybuilders, after they've been on like diets for like 3 or 4 months for a show,
Mhm.
they go on these eating binges,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
just eat anything in sight. Well, this guy actually competed in a show. He went on an eating binge for a week, and he put on 22 pounds in a week, and unfortunately experienced some very serious side effects. Including a side effect called rhabdomyolysis, and that's a medical term referring to a rapid breakdown of muscle. See, when you break down muscle very rapidly, some of the elements in muscle, particularly a substance called myoglobin, which is kind of an oxygen-carrying pigment found in muscle, it gets into your blood to such an extent that when it gets to the kidneys, the kidneys are the filtering units of the blood. You release so much myoglobin from the rapid muscle breakdown that it clogs the filtering units of the kidneys, and you could wind up with kidney failure. It's a very serious thing if it's not treated. And this guy experienced rhabdomyolysis, but I go into detail what exactly happened to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a learning lesson to bodybuilders who, to be careful about, when they go off the diet, the junk days.
Yeah.
So when, after I'm not saying that you shouldn't you should try and stay on a diet all the time, even when the contest is over. What I'm saying is don't go crazy because you could wind up with some very serious medical problems. So that's kind of like just is kind of like a lesson article. Just be careful because it's not something that's often told to bodybuilders. And then I have the fourth article is on. Remember, I've talked about how in previous articles I've talked about how they found that if you lift light weights. When I say light weights, I mean as little as 30% of 1 rep maximum. That's like warm-up weights.
Yeah.
But if you do higher reps, let's say 20 to 30 reps to muscular failure, that you can stimulate as much muscle growth as lifting heavy weights, 90%. A lot of people find that hard to believe, but I've explained in my newsletter exactly how it happens. But here's the small print that they don't tell you about that. When you lift the lighter weights, what you're working is mainly what they call the endurance or type 1 fibers. And, years ago, they thought that only the type 2 muscle fibers actually grew. Those are the muscles, those are the fibers that you get when you lift heavier weights. The notion was that the type 1 fibers are endurance fibers. In other words, they give you more muscle endurance, but they're not really prone to grow.
Yeah.
But over the years, they realized that's not really true, that if you put enough stress on the type 1 fibers, they will grow. In fact, when women use anabolic steroids, like the female bodybuilders, most of their muscle growth occurs in the type 1 rather than the type 2 fibers.
Wow.
If you look at some of these women, I mean, their muscles were pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So to say that type 1 fibers aren't capable of hypertrophy is not true. Anyway, a couple of researchers have developed this theory of training specifically for type 1 fibers and for type 2 fibers. The reason being that, and I just finished an article about this also relating to strength. If you want to get stronger, you really do have to work the type 2 fibers. So what this article basically talks about is how to specifically train for the type 1 and type 2 fibers.
Okay.
So you get the best of both worlds. You get maximum muscle growth and maximum strength, and you avoid injuries. And again, you get all this without taking any kind of drugs. So that's what the last article is on the March issue.
Well, Jerry, that sounds like you got one hell of an issue coming out with all those 4 articles and some really great information that both men and women of all ages are going to want to read.
Oh yeah, I think it's a really practical issue. A lot of information that anyone can be put to use right away. As usual, it's very simply explained. I don't use any technical terms, and if I do, I explain them. And again, I think it's really practical, and I think people who read this will definitely learn something that they didn't know before, without question.
Absolutely, like they do with every issue. But this one, I'm really looking forward to this. Hey, buddy, I also hope by next month when we do this, you're going to have gained back some muscle and feeling a lot better.
I hope so too.
All right, my friend.
Okay.
You have a
Take
good
care.
one. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
If you want the latest in exercise and nutrition science, then sign up for Jerry Brainum's Applied Metabolics newsletter.